Everything you're about to hear is for education and entertainment purposes only. Whilst we are licensed, we're not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Any advice is general advice. Equity Mates operates under Australian Financial Services Licence 540697.
Equity Mates!
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.
Welcome to another episode of Equity Mates, a podcast where we explore everything that is possible in the world of investing. If you've just joined us for the first time, a massive welcome to the Equity Mates community. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you going?
I'm very good, Bryce. Very excited for this episode. We first started working with Betashares back in 2018.
A long time ago.
I think we did a live show with Elan and Ellie back when we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah, thank you to Betashares for supporting that.
Yeah. And
Down in Melbourne.
We've come a long way. They've come a long way, I think we can say.
Yes. Business trajectory is slightly different.
Both trending upwards.
Yes.
But look, someone we haven't had on the show before, but we've always wanted to speak to is the CEO of Betashares, Alex Vynokur. And we were lucky enough to sit down with him and chat to him today.
Yeah, so we cover everything from the founding story of Betashares and his views on passive v active and how he, I guess, took a risk to go down the passive route at a time where active was certainly the investing, style of the moment. So, and then, of course, we cover off their new venture, which is Betashares Direct, and stick around for that because there's plenty of people in the community who are interested in that. Yeah,
and speaking of Betashares Direct, we want to say a massive thank you to Betashares for sponsoring this episode and helping us keep all of our content free for the Equity Mates community. Betashares Direct is a platform built for better investing. Break free from brokerage. Invest in any ETF and over 300 shares traded on the ASX with zero brokerage.
The platform allows you to set up automated recurring investments, offers low-cost diversified portfolios constructed and managed by their investing experts, and a range of powerful tools to help you become a better investor.
Head to Betashares Direct at betashares.com.au/direct to learn more and sign up. Betashares Capital Limited is the issuer of Betashares Direct. You should read the PDS and TMD available at betashares.com.au and consider whether the product is right for you.
Well, Ren, without further ado, here's our interview with Alex. Well, Alex, welcome to Equity Mates.
Great to be with you.
So we want to start with the founding story of Betashares, a brand that is known to many of the Equity Mates community. And we want to go back to the mid-2000s before Betashares was founded. What did you and your partners see in the Australian finance industry that really made you think that there was an opportunity there?
Probably before talking about what motivated me to start Betashares, I should probably tell you a little bit about my upbringing, because my upbringing and the journey to Australia basically definitely had a role to play. So I immigrated to Australia 30 years ago with my family from Ukraine. It was Soviet Ukraine at the time. It was part of the Soviet Union. Very different life, very different existence. Nobody really had any money, basically. Nobody had any money. Investing was certainly not a concept that people, sort of thought much about because nobody had any spare money at all. And I remember when we immigrated to Australia and I had a chance to finish high school and go to university, I started understanding a little bit more about investing. And the one thing that really stood out always is that the conventional wisdom in Australia and pretty much around the world is that investing is really, for wealthy people. You have to be wealthy to invest. And the more I learned about how the industry operates, the more I questioned why do people think that you have to be wealthy in order to invest. As part of my kind of upbringing, basically in the industry, I have realized that the vast majority of investments that Australians are able to access outside of property are really, sort of actively managed funds. And as you know, those used to be distributed, on a commission basis. And long story short, I had sort of developed a view that there should be an opportunity to make investing more accessible, number one. Number two, give people a much better deal, so much better value for money. And most importantly, most importantly, really break down that misnomer that you have to be wealthy in order to be an investor. So those were kind of some of the early thoughts, and I had an opportunity, to obviously put those thoughts into action. I had an amazing group of people around me in early days, and today, of course, we have a much more amazing and a much larger group of people that are really continuing to help us build, sort of on our mission.
I think people listening to this in 2024 don't really understand just how different the industry was in 2004. And I mean, like Bryce and I weren't really investing in that time, but you look back and there were sort of three big changes that we now take for granted. The first was in Australia, fund managers were active. There wasn't really passive fund managers.
Yes.
Fees, we were still in an era of like 2 and 20 fees, or, like still pretty high fees to access fund managers. And, these days we're talking about, half a basis point and lower, the 4 basis points or 3 basis points for your A200 product. It's like such an order of magnitude difference. And then the third change is like the ETF structure wasn't really a thing in Australia. Where LICs, listed investment companies, were the structure, and it was a bane of investors' existence that they constantly traded at a discount to their net asset value. And like all those three things, the style of investing, the cost of investing, and the structure that we invested in have just radically changed in 20 years. And, you and the team at Betashares have been at the forefront of that. But it would have been radical at the time when you started socializing this idea and trying to get investors and trying to get people to come and work for you. What were some of the conversations like back in that time?
Yeah. Look, it's a really excellent question. There's no question about the fact that at the time, the idea of building an ETF business in Australia really kind of, to a lot of people, felt that it's quite out there. As you quite rightly pointed out, listed investment companies were very popular. I think what was most popular is just stock picking. Everybody thought that stock picking is the name of the game. And active managers, of course, would, sort of try to market their stock picking prowess, and a lot of individual investors who were really, at the time, kind of embracing, online broking as the model, and all of a sudden they could go and buy certain stocks and they could read up about certain companies. For me, the one thing that was very clear, and I've read quite a lot about investing. I've had a chance to work, in companies and work for some people where I could learn a lot about financial services industry, and in particular the investment ecosystem. For me, the one thing that was very clear is that asset allocation is really very important. If you get asset allocation right, that can move the dial better than anything else. And the other thing that was very clear is that picking, individual stocks is really hard. Like, professionals are really struggling to beat the market. As 75% of active managers tend to underperform, sort of the index, basically year in, year out, over 1, 3, 5, 10-year period of time. So asset allocation is important, and really ignoring the noise, or trying to screen out the noise and focus on what's critical, is what really matters, basically, in investing. But at the time, of course, nobody wanted to talk about ETFs. I remember when, in early days, when I was speaking to people about building an ETF business and the fact that I want to start an ETF company, a lot of people thought that we were talking about electronic fund transfers, EFTs. So EFT was the thing that people always talked about, at the time. Yeah. I think it's fair to say I was very naive at the time as well. And in a way, I was quite fortunate to have been naive. At the time, I started Betashares, I had a small team, and we were up against, some really strong global players. You had BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street, and those are incredible firms. I have a great deal of respect for these firms, and we're still competing with them today. But my perspective has always been, I am not thinking about myself as a competitor in this market. We actually want to try to build the industry, because the industry didn't exist. It's no point in competing with each other, over crumbs, basically. We really want to, as a business, I wanted Betashares to be at the forefront of making investments better, making them more intelligent, making them more accessible for investors. And I figured if I'm successful in contributing to making this a reality, we will have a good business off the back of that. So yes, there will be other competitors, there will be other people in the ecosystem. So that was essentially my thinking. As I said, it was somewhat naive, maybe, sort of at the time, but I thought we should just focus on doing the right thing by the customer, and that will give us the opportunity to build a great business over time.
So Alex, with your mission in mind, what was the first ETF that you launched, and how was it received by the market?
It was a disaster. So the first two ETFs that we launched, which actually are still around, were QRE and QFN. So the resources sector, Australian resources sector ETF.
Makes sense.
And the Australian financial sector ETF. And don't ask me why. In all my wisdom, basically, I thought that those would be the best products to start with. It kind of felt like, resources and financial sectors are the most popular sectors in the Australian economy. We kind of figured, why don't we bring those products to market and maybe make it easier for people to access those? Of course, I had given no thought at the time to the fact that people already have exposure to both the resources sector and the financial sector, because they own the banks directly and they own BHP and Rio. So it was actually a pretty dumb idea at the time. But what was really important, and one of the biggest lessons I've learned, is the need to read the tea leaves and read the feedback from the market and not be too proud to admit that you've made a mistake, and essentially, as now popular to say, pivot or evolve basically as a business. So our first two products were actually very, very slow to resonate. And of course, I should take a step back. I mean, we were also obviously a new fund manager. And, the business of funds management is obviously a business of trust, first and foremost. So putting aside the product merit itself, the fact that we were new, unproven, meant that we had to really focus on building trust. And building trust is not an overnight, it's not an overnight endeavor. It takes a long time. In my perspective on business and on life generally is to try to under-promise and over-deliver. So as a business, we have always tried to focus on not making sort of great predictions or great pronouncements about what we can deliver, but really be focused on doing a great job. So part of the reason why early days were slow were because we were new and we needed to prove ourselves. And I had no illusions about the fact that it's going to take us a long time. And that's, it ended up taking longer, but it definitely took a long time. But also part of it is because the early product that we've launched, for example, those two resource and financial sectors, were not really our best, sort of looking at it with benefit of hindsight. But importantly, again, having some products in the market gave us the opportunity to talk to potential clients and seek feedback. Because when you're starting a business and all you have is a PowerPoint, you've got nothing but your own PowerPoint and your own sort of thoughts. You don't have clients. You don't have a relationship with people that can actually give you feedback. And that was kind of the most important thing for us in early days, the opportunity to be in touch with our clients, opportunity to listen. And ultimately, my job was to make sure that we take that feedback into account and we evolve as a company and we start bringing products to market that can really add value, basically. That was one of the earliest and one of the most important lessons that I've learned.
Well, after those first two ETFs that perhaps didn't launch as well as you were hoping, was there one ETF early days that just launched better than you could expect? Just went viral amongst the investment community?
Can we guess?
Yeah, please.
Okay, all right. What do you reckon?
I'm going to have to say NDQ.
Yeah. That, or if it was thematic, I would guess hack.
Yes. Those are both definitely some of our best, but they were not the earliest. I think the first. So I would rewind, and of course it's all relative, right? It's all relative. So the first that really struck a chord was our high interest cash ETF AAA.
Oh wow!
I mean, AAA was a big deal at the time. It was so big a deal that we had to make sure that we evolved the product as we're building it at the time, because there was so much demand from clients for this product that we needed to start diversifying the banks that we're depositing with. Because at the beginning, we only had one. Because, judging by our track record, which was fairly modest growth, we thought, okay, well, this one hopefully will do better, but we didn't know how much better. And we have just been really surprised by how strongly it resonated, with the market. I shouldn't say surprised. We were hoping it's going to resonate with the market, but it really resonated even better than we thought. And it was fascinating. And AAA is now, still a very successful product. Is one of our flagship, funds. At the time, I think it may have been the first high-interest cash ETF in the world that was launched.
Oh, wow.
So we were not only trying to do something that was first in Australia, but we kind of looked at it and we figured, why isn't there a cash ETF, and why shouldn't we bring one? And yeah, that was really phenomenal. It was a lot of fun. Ended up definitely giving us a lot more confidence. Truly innovating can be rewarded, basically, if you deliver value to the customer.
Well, Alex, fast forward over a decade and Betashares now manage more than 90 ETFs and over $43 billion for 1 million investors. Do you remember what you were projecting at the 15, 16-year mark when you first started the business?
Look, the truth of the matter is that I wasn't projecting that far.
Yeah.
In early days, we just in very, very early days, we really just try to survive, basically. I mean, I had borrowed against my house. Our first child was born at the time we were starting, the business. And that was the time we were just trying to make it, basically. I did actually look back for some, at some of the early forecasts for the first 5 years and the first 10 years. And I think it's fair to say that we have absolutely exceeded, sort of my own expectations in terms of how the industry will evolve and how Betashares within that industry, sort of will evolve. Obviously, I'm incredibly proud of everything we have done to date. But my focus right now is really the future. And of course, we've done a lot of really interesting things. We've done some things that haven't resonated as well. And there's always lessons. And my perspective is that if you want to be an innovator, you always have to prepare to do things that may not, sort of be successful. Otherwise, you're not really innovating. But yes, the business, of course, has done incredibly well. For me, what's important is not just the things that are measurable, the assets under management and the number of clients, but really the fact that we are able to add value. Basically, we are really able to move the dial in today's environment, basically, we're living in. And I think that's going to continue for a long time. Investments are going to play a much more significant role in helping Australians achieve their financial goals and help them get ahead in life. If I look at how wealth in Australia was built historically, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, the vast majority of Australians who have built wealth have really grown up with the idea is that you need to save up enough for a deposit, and you buy a property, and the property ends up your source of wealth, basically, ends up being your nest egg. I mean, given where Australia is today, and this is no reflection on politicians and, all the efforts that are trying to put in to make, housing more affordable. But the truth is that housing is not affordable. And property ownership is going to become less and less, affordable for more and more of us. And if I think about my children that are growing up, they're both teenagers. If I think about, a lot of my colleagues in the business today, I mean, just the reality is that we need to be smarter with our money outside of property. It's not to say that there are no opportunities. There are phenomenal opportunities. And as you know, if you look at the growth of a diversified portfolio of equities and other asset classes, it actually grows better. It achieves better returns long term than property itself. But getting on that property ladder has been such a big part of the psyche of so many of us in Australia. So our mission, basically, and where I'm focused and where our business is focused, is really to help Australians be smarter with their money. And ETFs, for the first decade plus of our journey as a business, have played a really crucial role because we have learned a lot of lessons as a business, and we at the same time have been able to offer value to give people to enable people to take a step in the right direction, to help them invest smarter, and to help them get access to opportunities that were previously perhaps not as accessible, or maybe they were accessible but very expensive. So that makes me very proud. But at the same time, what really motivates me and what motivates our team at Betashares is to continue to evolve and continue to raise the bar for ourselves in how we can add more value to our clients. How can we make investing better? How can we bring in things like automation? How do we bring technology, to the forefront and help people make better financial decisions, help all of us be smarter with our money? I mean, that's really important. And my view is that for the future well-being of generations of Australians from this point onwards, we are going to have to be much smarter with our money outside of property.
Yeah, well, I mean, we couldn't agree more with that. That's why we started Equity Mates, really. But I think some of what you were saying there really leads on to the next part of the Betashares journey and where we want to take this conversation, which is Betashares Direct, because it really is a new chapter for you and the team. You're moving into being a broader wealth management business encompassing the ETFs, obviously, but also a broader investment platform and superannuation. So why make this change for Betashares? Why pursue this strategy?
Yeah, look, I really feel that ETFs are a phenomenal building block for portfolios of not just self-directed Australian investors, but financial advisors in Australia and globally, as well as institutional investors. If you look around the world, some of the most sophisticated, some of the largest institutional investors, as well as financial advisors, are implementing ETFs as a way to build diversified, robust, cost-effective investment portfolios. So ETFs are one of the great inventions, basically, and one of the great evolutions in the world of investing in many, many decades. And this is not just Alex talking about it with a Betashares hat on, but if I look at the industry globally and how much value it's provided basically to the investment world, it is really incredible. And when I was starting the business in Australia, we had less than 5% of financial advisors that even knew what ETFs are, let alone invest in them. And today, I think almost 3/4 of financial advisors in Australia are either recommending ETFs today or planning to recommend ETFs in a short period of time. So that transition over the last 15 years has been incredible. And the number of self-directed investors that are implementing ETFs has also grown a lot. But the most important thing is not only having access to ETFs as building blocks, but really building investment portfolios. And I think this is where technology can play a significant role in helping importantly, not necessarily taking over, but helping our clients build better portfolios. So if I was to take a step back and think about the long-term plan from Betashares from this point onwards, if you look at Betashares Direct, we've launched Betashares Direct because we thought there is a opportunity and there's a need to change the way Australians interact with investing. The vast majority of us invest because we want to build wealth for long term, or we want to preserve wealth, basically, that we already have. Sort of the first thing that comes to mind when you think about investing as a self-directed investor is online brokerage. To me, if I look at the world of online brokerage, it pursues a transactional model, basically. Online brokers buy, sort of facilitate buying and selling, of securities, be it shares, be it ETFs. And, the model is, you charge brokerage. It's a transactional model. And essentially, the more transactions your clients undertake, the better it is for you as a business. From our perspective, transactional business models are actually at odds with the long-term objectives of investing. So as an investor, you want to build your wealth long term, you actually want to transact less rather than more. Yes, you want to rebalance your portfolio, but you want to transact less. As you know, things like fear and greed, which often stand between us as investors and better investment returns, often drive investment behavior. We believe that helping investors mitigate, sort of some of those temptations of fear and greed, helping them focus on the long term and removing the friction, of transactions from the investment experience is really, really valuable. I do not believe, and we certainly at Betashares do not believe in the get rich quick, approach to building wealth. Anybody who's been in the market, anybody who's got some experience as an investor or has read books about investing would understand that one of the magical ingredients in investing is the power of compounding. And we certainly believe that utilizing smart investment, smart portfolio construction to really take advantage of that power of compounding, together with keeping costs low and keeping diversified, is going to help so many of us in Australia build excellent, robust investment portfolios that can really deliver on the mission and that can really deliver on the reason why all of us start investing in the first place. And then if I take it separately or take it one step further into the world of superannuation, as you know, superannuation is the largest asset for the vast majority of Australians outside of their home, basically. So it's superannuation is important. When I travel around the world, and I spent a lot of my time traveling to other parts of the world, talking to people smarter than me, and trying to learn, from what people are doing around the world, Australian superannuation system is really the pride and joy, of our financial services industry on the global stage. But when I look at the world of superannuation in Australia, there hasn't been a lot of innovation in super. And we absolutely respect, sort of what industry super funds are doing. But as you know, over time, the number of superannuation funds in Australia has really consolidated. And some of the consolidation has been for a very good reason, because some of the super funds have been, too expensive and have not delivered good value for money. Quite often they have not delivered good returns, which is obviously absolutely important, for long-term investing, for long-term compounding, as we talked about. But we believe that the world of investments and the world of superannuation can benefit probably from some of the DNA that we have as a business. Innovation, focus on customer, focus on delivering good value for money. These are the things that really drive us at Betashares, and we are super excited to be able to bring some of those dreams to reality by launching Betashares Direct and by now having a role in superannuation.
Well, Alex, we often talk about how many investment platforms there are in Australia, and these investment platforms and the super funds are your partners and the gateway for our community to access your products, but they're now also your competitors. So how has Betashares Direct been received by the finance industry, and also how has it been received by Australian investors?
Look, it's been received really well, and one of the key reasons why it's been received really well, and I'll double click on both the sort of the advisor side of the market and the self-directed side of the market, but it's been received well because our perspective, as always, is not just to come in and do more of the same, but really bring a differentiated offering in the market, basically. So I don't think there is value in us launching an investment platform that does pretty much the same thing as everybody else. I think our view is that we want to continue evolving the market. We want to bring sort of things to this market, which in our view will actually make investors better off. Again, over the last 15 years, focusing on investors, and doing the right thing, bringing good value for money, products and services has definitely resonated really well. And I think generally in the world of business, if you focus on the customer and if you focus on doing the right thing, it's a really good way to go. So our perspective is that we do not feel that coming in and just competing in the market, for example, on price, is a smart strategy, basically. Our approach is really to make sure that we enrich the world of opportunity for the customer, and we make their experience better, And hopefully that resonates. And so far, it's definitely resonated really strongly. And interestingly enough, for advisors, and I just want to make it clear, we're certainly not planning to rebuild an investment platform such as, Hub or NetWealth, which are really very comprehensive investment platforms that financial planners use to look after their clients. I mean, for us, the focus is really the self-directed investor, first and foremost. But interestingly enough, even for a large number of financial advisors who currently in Australia, as you know, the numbers of financial advisors have really decreased, very, very significantly because of cost of compliance and cost of doing business. So effectively, advice in Australia today is really becoming unaffordable for the average Australian. So advisors are focused on the high net wealth part of the market. And this is an area where there's always going to be an opportunity and always room for tailored, sort of personal advice. The fact that the advice industry is focused on the high net worth market doesn't mean that there isn't a need for the average Australian, for the Australian that's maybe just starting on their investment journey, or somebody who's been on that investment journey but not an ultra high net worth individual. It doesn't mean that we cannot add value and we shouldn't be focused on helping that client base be smarter with their money. So there's a real divide at the moment in terms of advice affordability. And this is really where we're focused. We are focused on using technology to help people be better off, to help them make better financial decisions, to help automate, to help save, to help invest, and ultimately achieve the goals that people are setting out to achieve.
Well, Alex, listening to you talk about the advice gap in Australia and how we need to do something about it felt like you were reading out of some of the Equity Mates pitch decks from over the years, because
send it through.
It's something we're certainly passionate about, and we sort of see our media as a way and the financial education we deliver as a way to close that gap. If you can use technology to close that gap, that is something that we're all for. So we're cheering you on as you go on that journey. And you've said a few times there about how you want to continue to evolve the market and continue to drive innovation with your technology. So we have to ask, what's in the product pipeline? Maybe if you look 12 to 18 months out, what are some of the things that you're excited to bring to market?
Yeah, look, we have an incredibly exciting pipeline with Betashares Direct. As you know, we've started with ETFs and provided access with no brokerage, to individual ETFs as well as portfolios of ETFs. And by the way, speaking of portfolios for a second, it's such a great way, from my perspective, it's such a great way to build diversification. And we are offering now portfolios which are pre-made, which are Betashares pre-made portfolios, but also allowing customers to build their own customized portfolios, either take into account their individual objectives or take into account what they already might own. Equities, shares, obviously an important part of the investment ecosystem. I mean, we certainly do not, promote, individual stock picking, but we know that investors in Australia, whether it's individual, through family trusts, through SMSFs, all of which are available on Betashares Direct, obviously, they have existing holdings and they have existing portfolios. So enabling access to shares is obviously a great step in our evolution, which is really excellent and helping people, sort of research and make better investment decisions in regards to their overall portfolio is fantastic. But long term, there are great things, that we're building. We certainly think that technology is going to continue playing a great role in helping people invest better. So there will be lots of features that we will be launching that are going to help our clients save, invest, automate, and essentially make investment experience easy, accessible, and cost-effective, basically, which is ultimately absolutely critical. There are some people like me who are investment nerds who wake up in the morning thinking about the market and what's going on in the market. For the vast majority of Australians, investment is something that should be happening in the background, basically. They need to have the right education. And again, the work that you guys are doing is absolutely phenomenal in helping educate investors, because that's absolutely critical. And unfortunately, none of us are learning, investments at school. We should be, but we're not. So education is critical, and then access to technology, access to an investment platform such as Betashares Direct, and some of the platforms that already exist. Because again, we certainly view ourselves as part of the ecosystem. We do not, for a second, sort of criticize or take issue with the business models that other people in the market are pursuing. But we want to introduce something, new, as I mentioned, something differentiated, and something that we think is going to be very strongly aligned with the long-term interests of our investors. So there's a pretty exciting product pipeline. Obviously, can't tell you everything about it, but definitely focus on technology, focus on helping people make better financial decisions is at the forefront of my mind.
Well, the place to come when you are ready to announce the next wave of product launches. But Alex, we wanted to close out this discussion with some advice for young investors, because as CEO of Betashares, you've had the opportunity to work regularly with some of Australia's leading fund managers and advisors. I think subsequently seen the hallmarks of what makes good investors time and time again. So what do you hope more young people can understand when it comes to the principles and hallmarks of good long-term investing?
I've got a couple of things that immediately spring to mind. Start early. Compounding, I think it was Einstein who actually said that compounding is the eighth wonder, of the world. And compounding is incredible. The earlier you start, the better. And you don't have to start with a lot. Certainly not on Betashares Direct. You can start with very small balance. That genuinely is very important, starting early. And building good financial disciplines, not seeking quick riches. When I was a university student, I've read a lot. I was stupid as well, and I've chased some of the hot mining stocks or whatever with small, tiny amounts of money, basically. And you win some and you lose some. Today, of course, instead of mining stocks, we have crypto and we have other, shiny, shiny things. But the most important thing, I would say, start early, number one, and number two, give it time. Give it time, contribute regularly, invest regularly. Never forget the fact that building wealth will take time, but with time, you will be successful. Using diversification to your advantage is really important as well. So those would be the main things I say. Start early, contribute regularly, and don't forget that building wealth takes time.
If people look at the journey of Betashares, it's pretty inspiring to see what you guys have built in, a decade and a half. You're now, you said earlier that trust is the most important thing in funds management. And I think Betashares has built a brand that is synonymous with investing for a lot of Australians and certainly trusted by millions of Australians. So for people who look at the entrepreneurial journey you've been on and are inspired by it, what advice do you have for them if they want to start their own business?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I would just say do it. If you've got an idea, if you've got an ambition, and you're crazy enough, absolutely do it. It is not only a rewarding experience in terms of the business that you build, but the journey itself is, from my perspective, even more rewarding, basically. I must say, as I reflect on my own journey, with starting Betashares with a small team and seeing the team evolve and seeing the things that are possible, it actually becomes a part of your life. I mean, I've got 2 kids and I feel that Betashares is my third child, basically. It's absolutely cannot be overstated just how important a part of one's life a business like this can become. And in my case, it is a very, I would say, inextricable, part of my life. Seeing, my colleagues evolve over time, take new challenges, sort of step up and do things that they weren't, sort of aware that they could do. And I wasn't, even thinking about that at the time. New ideas, new directions. It's a really incredible life journey. So starting a business or being part of a business that is growing and that's got ambition, it is really, really special. And I would say it's an incredible life experience. So I would absolutely encourage those that are thinking about it in terms of starting their own business, or those that are thinking about their careers, joining a business that wants to go places, or joining a business that wants to make things that have not been made before, that wants to take things up a notch. I think it's really exciting. And ultimately, that's what drives progress. It doesn't matter whether it's financial services industry or it's a media industry, it's a manufacturing industry. I think change is the one constant basically in life, and embracing that and making most of that. It's absolutely exciting, and I'm super passionate about it. So highly recommend it. Do it.
Well, Alex, thank you so much. We've had plenty of representatives from Betashares on the show over the years, but it's been great to finally speak to you and understand the journey of Betashares. And I think the mission that you guys have resonates a lot with our Equity Mates and also the Equity Mates audience. And we have a lot of time for those that are trying to close that advice gap and give Australians the opportunity to build wealth outside of property. So looking forward to seeing how Betashares Direct evolves. And we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time as well. It's been great chatting with you.
Now, before we go, we do want to say a big thank you to Betashares Direct for supporting this episode.
Betashares Direct is a platform built for better investing. Break free from brokerage. Invest in any ETF and over 300 shares traded on the ASX with zero brokerage. The platform allows you to set up automated recurring investments, offers low-cost, diversified portfolios constructed and managed by their investing experts, and a range of powerful tools to help you become a better investor.
So head to Betashares Direct at betashares.com.au/direct to learn more and sign up. Betashares Capital Limited is the issuer of Betashares Direct. You should read the PDS and TMD available at betashares.com.au and consider whether the product is right for you.
You have been listening to an Equity Mates Media production. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. This podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes. Any advice is general advice only and has not taken into account your personal financial circumstances, needs, or objectives. Before acting on general advice, you should consider if it is relevant to your needs and read the relevant product disclosure statement. And if you're unsure, please speak to a financial professional. The hosts of this podcast and their guests may have positions in the companies mentioned. Equity Mates Media operates under an Australian Financial Services Licence 540697.